Greetings and welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I'm the Reverend Christian Schmidt, the interim minister of this congregation. So whether this is your first time with us or your 1001st, know you are welcome here and that we are glad to have you. We are glad we can provide this forum, currently online only, to find comfort and recommit ourselves to the mission of supporting one another in our spiritual journeys, working for justice, caring for the earth, and building the common good. We gather each Sunday to recommit ourselves to dismantling systems of oppression and injustice. It is so good to be together. I have one quick announcement for you today, which is that MVUC will be conducting a search for a new settled minister beginning in the coming year. So in the next few weeks, the board and nominating committee will be reaching out to every church member for suggestions of people who should serve on MVUC's Ministerial Search Committee. Please be on the lookout for an email or phone call about this, and feel free to reach out to the board or nominating committee if you have any questions. Lastly, please continue to look to all our communications for emails, phones, website, etc., for continued updates about worship as things continue to change in this pandemic, and other church happenings. And know if you are ever in need, we are just a phone call or email away. I invite you now to take a deep breath as we enter into this time of worship.
A Chalice Lighting for the New Year by Lisa Dogue. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise, for beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise, for all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise.
Good morning. Would you please turn in your gray hymnal to number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Words can also be found in your order of service and on your screen. May nothing evil cross this door, and may your fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This hearth, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shouts, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Our covenant. I invite you now, as we unite our voices, to speak aloud the covenant of our community. These words are both known within our hearts and are displayed upon your screen. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Christian Schmidt. I'm doing the Time for All Ages this week, and this week we're talking about false starts and how we can keep going. And so I wanted to share with you a really special song. It's a very old song. It's a freedom song written many, many years ago as part of the civil rights movement and other things. I already introduced myself, but I want to introduce my special helpers today. This is
Sam.
This is
Ash.
And this is
CJ.
And these are my kids. John was going to help us today, but he's doing some other stuff. So, all right, guys, y'all ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no false starts turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no false starts turn me around. Gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no mistakes turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no mistakes turn me around. Gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. You remember what the last word is?
Yeah.
Ain't gonna let no COVID turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no COVID turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land.
Boy.
Thank y'all.
Mount Vernon Unitarian Church continues to share the plate with committed organizations that you, our members, have chosen. During the month of January, our offering is being shared with Neighborhood Health, a local nonprofit whose mission is to improve health and advance health equity in Alexandria, Arlington, and Fairfax by providing high-quality primary care regardless of ability to pay. We are a community that invites spiritual and material generosity from our members and friends. I invite this gathered community to offer whatever you are most comfortable with in spirit and financial generosity for the mission of our church community. If you would like to write and mail a check for the offering, please make it to MVUC and in the memo line indicate how you would like it to be used. You can also follow the link in the chat box to make a one-time or recurring payment. We are so grateful for your donation.
I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer. We'll begin with silent reflection, followed by our spoken meditation. Join me in the silence. I share with you these words from the Reverend Kate Lohr called As a New Year Begins. Great Spirit of life, as a new year begins, we turn inward to reflect about the state of our lives. What lessons have we learned in the past year, and which new ones now call us forward? To whom do we still owe an apology or an expression of thanks? And with whom must we draw fresh boundaries? As we pause from our regular rhythms of rush, 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 we open ourselves to new perspectives and possibilities. We give thanks for these moments and for the wisdom they afford us. May they help bring us together in the sacred dynamics of life so that we, as individuals and as members of this community, might reach our full potential. As we metaphorically step across this threshold, let this new year be a year of greater awe and gratitude, of deeper kindness and acceptance, and more courageous acts of conviction. For a kinder, more equitable and sustainable world is not only possible, she is on her way. And in the quietness of this sacred community, we can ever hear her breathing. Amen.
Would you turn in your gray hymnals, please, to number 123, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
It Matters by Robert R. Walsh. I knew a man who had printed on his stationery this proverb: "Nothing is settled, everything matters." It established a certain ambiance for reading his letters, as if to say, what you are about to read is to be taken seriously, but it is not final. I remember him and his proverb sometimes, especially when it seems impossible to change the world or myself in any significant way. Times like the beginnings of New Year's. Sorry, Jim, I say. It's not true that nothing is settled. In the past year, choices have been made, losses have been suffered, there has been growth and decay, there have been commitments and betrayals. None of that can be undone. A year ago, no one knew whether during this year one person would become pregnant, another would get cancer, another would take a new job, another would have an accident, but now it is settled. One day this year I was present just when someone needed me. Another day I was busy doing something else when I was needed. One day I said something to a friend that injured our relationship. Another day I said something that enabled a person to see life in a new way. The best and the worst of those days is now written. All my tears, of joy or sorrow, cannot erase it. If I stay with my meditation long enough, the reply comes. Robbie, says Jim, you have misunderstood the proverb. It is true that you cannot escape the consequences of your actions, or the chances of the world, but what is not settled is how the story turns out. What is not settled is what the meaning of your life will be. The meaning of a life is not contained within one act, or one day, or 1 year. As long as you are alive, the story of your life is still being told, and the meaning is still open. As long as there is life in the world, the story of the world is still being told. What is done, but nothing is settled. And if nothing is settled, then everything matters. Every choice, every act in the new year matters. Every word, every deed is making the meaning of your life and telling the story of the world. Everything matters in the year coming, and, more importantly, everything matters today.
In Olympic track and field sprints, you line up next to your competitors, and at an electronic sound signal, what we might call a beep, you take off. Now, since many of these races are decided by hundredths or even thousandths of a second, starting as soon after that signal as possible is vital if you want to have any chance to win. A typical reaction time for elite sprinters, that is the time from the sound signal starting to a racer starting to move, is 150 milliseconds, or about 1/6 of a second. If you move sooner than 100 milliseconds after the signal, you've done what is called a false start, because that means you were guessing when the signal would happen and starting to move, since no human can react faster than about 100 milliseconds. So for comparison's sake, the average blink of an eye from start to finish is about 100 milliseconds. It's a tiny amount of time. So in the Olympics, you're disqualified if you false start even once. It's extremely important, therefore, not to false start, but it's almost as important to not have a slow reaction, because either way, you're not going to win the race if you're too fast, off the blocks, or too slow. Now, the good news is that so far as I know, none of us here in the room or even watching online are Olympic sprinters. And the even better news is that we get a lot more than one false start in our lives, and there's no disqualification. In other words, you get to mess up, friends. You get to make the wrong decisions, and you get to try again. This is life. It doesn't mean that what you've done in the past doesn't matter. Of course it does. But it does mean that the journey isn't over. The book has more chapters. The play still has more acts to come. Because maybe you regret the career decisions you've made, or maybe there's a broken relationship in your life you want to repair. Maybe you regret one or more political stances you've taken in the past. Maybe you regret how you've approached life in this pandemic, either going out too much or too little, or not wearing a mask every time you might have, or deciding to travel or deciding not to travel. In fact, I came to this topic of false starts as we begin a new year. I came to it in thinking about the pandemic we've all been enduring for nearly 2 years now. There have been so many false starts, from health organizations, local, national, international, making halting decisions about what the next step should be, how we should proceed, what safety measures we should take. And then the politicians saying, we're ready to reopen. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Oh, wait, not quite yet. To the repeated waves, depending on where you are or how you count, we're on the third or fourth or more wave of infections. And at least the fourth significant variant of the COVID-19 virus that swept around the world. Each of these waves and variants causing another round of reaction and decision-making. We have missed so many chances to do the right thing as a country and world, often because we've been greedy or short-sighted. And I'm guessing that's not most of you listening to me now, to be sure, but a worldwide problem requires a large-scale, system-wide response. And we've struggled at best to do that, haven't we? We're not good as humans at seeing systemic problems. We're not good at solving them either. We're much better on the individual, short-term level, things that we can see and feel in the moment. We're better at how I can help this one person get out of poverty, rather than addressing all the issues that lead to poverty for so many. Harvard psychology professor Daniel Gilbert argues that humans are exquisitely adapted to respond to immediate problems, but not so much to larger, though more likely, but more distant problems. An example he gives is the reaction we have to a terrorist act, which is immediate, strong, and sure, not always correct, compared to, say, our actions against global climate change, which have been slow, halting, denying. Or to give a more linked example and a recent one, we're good at doing immediate aid in the aftermath of tornado damage in Kentucky. But we're very bad at addressing the issues that have led to climate conditions that create more frequent and powerful tornadoes in areas that previously didn't experience them that much. So it's distressing, but not surprising, that we have been so bad at addressing climate change. There are some, notably in the fossil fuel industry, that directly oppose any steps to tackle it. But the bigger problem in many ways has been that the majority of people haven't recognized the seriousness of the issue or been willing to do anything about it. This might sound familiar. MLK had a similar criticism for people about racism and civil rights. He said the problem wasn't the avowed racists, but those in the moderate middle that weren't willing to do anything about them. For climate change, it feels like things have finally, perhaps after decades, begun to change. But still, our national commitments are too small, and though it matters what we do as individuals to combat climate change, this is not a problem that will be solved by individual work alone. It needs systemic, large-scale action that only governments can coordinate and manage. So we've had a lot of false starts on climate change, a lot of optimism and hopefulness that has gone ultimately unrewarded. But today I'm saying that we do get a chance to start again. It's too late to stop some of the worst consequences, but it's never too late to do something. We still have chances. And because of all our false starts, we'll face consequences we already are. Because to quote the words of our reading today, everything matters. Our many false starts have robbed us of so many chances to make a difference. And this is true in our personal lives too. False starts are not without penalties. You do lose chances to do some things. Some of those chances won't come back. And I also want to point out that things like your identity and social location will dramatically affect both the consequences for a mistake and the chances you have to start over. This is what we mean when we talk about privilege. If you have access to significant financial resources or other valuable things, you get a lot of chances in this world. Just look at all the politicians and entertainers and sports figures and such that get chance after chance despite making some pretty huge mistakes. And if you are white or male or straight or educated or any of a number of things that our society gives advantage to, then you get more and better chances than others. It's not fair, it's not equitable, it's not right, but it is reality. And it's one of the reasons we commit in this congregation to dismantling oppression of all kinds. We say it each week in our welcome, echoing the words of our congregational mission and vision. Lack of opportunity is in many ways as great an oppression as any of them. Imagine, and I know many here do not have to imagine, but imagine with me that no matter what you do, no matter how good you are, you won't get the same chances as someone else, and for reasons you have no control over. Because it's easy for me to talk about false starts. I know I've been fortunate, privileged, lucky to have some of the chances I've had. I remember vividly this one moment in my early 20s. I had just moved, I had just changed jobs, and as a consequence of that, I had no money. It would be coming, but not until my first paycheck. I didn't even have enough to pay my cell phone bill, which was well past due, and ultimately, they cut off my service. And so I drove because I couldn't make a call, though I suppose I could have found a way to do that in retrospect. But I drove some 90 miles to go see my parents and ask for money. And so it was a desperate time for me, but the difference between me and many is that I had resources. I had parents who could give or loan me a few $100s to fix this problem. And a lot of people don't have that. I know. It's one of the reasons we have things like the Ministerial Discretionary Fund to help people by giving them small sums of money to help in such a crisis. It's why we have the various safety nets our government has to help people who are desperately in need. These programs that are constantly criticized by people who don't need them. My point here today is that I want a world where people can make mistakes, can encounter problems they did nothing to create or deserve, and still have another chance. I want a world where a few false starts doesn't mean your life is ruined. A world where people have the chance to be all that they can be. You know we're not there, friends. But I believe with all my heart and soul that we can get there. Because you always have another chance. No false start should disqualify you from the sport of life. And more importantly, we together always have a chance to build the world we dream about. May it be so.
Join me in singing number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Will you join me as we unite our voices to recite the words to extinguish our chalice, words known within our hearts and can be found displayed upon your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, there's always another chance. Your false start doesn't disqualify you, and all of us are here to support one another. Our worship has ended, and our service begins.